Our today's guest has been an avid problem solver who joined the military when he was 18, and his first flight was actually to his military boot camp. He spent his 27th and 28th birthday in combat in one of the longest deployments since World War II. These days, he works on helping cybersecurity companies solve issues. And let's welcome Ron on 10 Minutes of Hiding Wisdom. Hi, Ron. How are you doing today?
Hey, Manal. How are you? It's good to hear from you.
I am doing well. How about yourself?
I'm hanging in there. It's Friday. Not too much work left to do today.
Well, Fridays are always the best. Like, you're ready, you can just chill and everything. So it's always nice. How's life during the pandemic?
I think my job largely remains unchanged. Although one of my favorite parts about my job was getting to go out on site and visit clients, whiteboard their problems, physically be present. There's a lot of paralingual communication that occurs when you're a consultant, right? And that's very difficult to capture via Zoom. So, I think I missed the travel portion of my job. I'm really hoping to get back into that in, Q3 of this year, if everything goes well.
Hopefully. I mean, vaccines are being open and are much more accessible to people now. So hopefully things do start get back to, like, once we do go back to normal. So hopefully you can continue actually communicating with clients physically. So where do you work, Ron? Can you give the guests an idea about where you're currently working? What you do in that position?
Sure. So I'm the vice president of compliance at Scalable Security, which is a cloud security consulting firm. So what we do in a nutshell is a large tech company or even a small one will have some sort of cybersecurity problem they're trying to tackle. And there's about 20 of us, and we'll either virtually or physically go out there and we'll help them solve that problem, right? And in the same way, a batting coach might help you get better at baseball.
Okay, and how has your experience been working? Were you always interested in cybersecurity, considering you had a military background and everything? So I can see that you've always wanted to do something that made a difference. So, as in, like, were you always interested in cybersecurity specifically, or was it just something that you were like, oh, okay, it's interesting? It's as in, like, there's a lot of companies that are opening up regarding cybersecurity. So, where did the interest come from specifically?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I've been nerdy my whole life. And I got a computer in, probably 1993, 1992. I got a Packard Bell
Okay.
486 DX266 desktop, and I got the World Wide Web when the internet still came in a box and my Windows 95 OS. And I mainly used it to download Dungeons and Dragons stuff or learn how to build Magic the Gathering decks. But I was a computer person from a very early age. I modified it, put a CD-ROM in it, and I learned, I think, very quickly that, like, especially because I didn't come from a family that had a lot of income. Like a computer and the internet's a very powerful thing. Like, it's a force multiplier, right? Because it gives you access to information. And that's one thing I think before computing got real popular, if you were a lower income person, you didn't really have a lot of access to information. And that allowed
Mhm.
me to, get good at things. Like, it allowed me to get into the military. It allowed me to get good at my job in the military, which was to, call cannon, rocket, and missile fire. So doing that requires a high degree of accuracy. We use computers to do that too. So then when I got out, there's just not a ton of jobs where they let you do that in the normal world. So I was like, well, like, what am I good at? What am I naturally good at? And I was good at working on computers. And I just kind of, looked up jobs and reverse engineered what I would need to get those jobs, and then got the things I needed to do to get those jobs, and applied until I got one.
Wow. Okay. So, as in, like, it's a very interesting story specifically because you realize, as in, like, you got out of military and how your desire towards working with computers specifically got you to that position. So it's very admirable specifically because a lot of people usually, as in, like, they get lost, but you realize that you had a certain passion towards using computers and you realize that passion to actually secure a career in that. So that's very inspiring. So thank you for sharing that. So, of course, so Ron, can you tell me a little about what is something that you consider that's very important for people who are looking for jobs when they're applying for jobs? That's something that could make them stand out, something that would increase their chances of getting that specific job?
Yeah, there's a couple things. And this one sounds, it's going to sound like a consultant answer because it's a soft skills thing, but understanding who you are as a person, right? And there's a ton of content out there in the marketplace for this right now. There's the Mark Mansons and the Jordan Petersons and the people you can learn about your own personality and your own identity. And I think knowing who you are, like, on the inside, being authentic in the existentialist sense, right? Like, doing the things you want to do in your life. I think that is intoxicating to people, right? When they see you're doing something you love, everybody wants to either see you do that thing, or they want to become interested in it, or they themselves
Yeah.
want to learn about it, right? So I think that helps in interviews. Like, the people I interview a lot of people. I've been doing this for a while now, and the people who come across as really being genuinely interested in the thing they're doing, Like, I'm always fascinated. I'm like, oh, cool. Tell me about that. Like, you got a smart refrigerator. I don't have one of those. Tell me how that works. Like, does it make your coffee in the morning? And then
Yeah.
they're excited, so I get excited. So I think the first thing is to be genuinely aware of who you are as a person and to use that to your advantage, right? Like, I know I'm extroverted. Matter of fact, I'm like 99% extroverted on the ocean test. So I knew a
Wow.
consulting job wouldn't hurt me,
Okay.
right? But if I was really introverted, it would be horrible to have to get in front of groups full of people and speak to them all day, especially when they have a problem,
For
right? When they're
sure.
at a moment of crisis. So I think that's the first thing. And I
Yeah.
think the second thing is, like, in some form or some facet, you have to embrace technology. Like, you can't be a refusenik anymore when it comes to tech, right? Because, like, even grocery stores use a lot of tech now. Every job you see, tech touches that job in some way. If you want to make, if you want to make mugs on the internet like this one, you have to use a computer to render that image and upload it and to get it rendered onto that mug. So the second part of it is, like, learn technology. Like, if you're below the age of 50, you can't say you don't really know how to use a computer anymore. Like, that's no longer an acceptable answer, I don't think.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. And you think, as in like online courses and everything, if you really want to get proficient in like learning how to use a computer and everything, as in like, I mean, it's basic now. It's like, but then again, if you really want to know how the like tricks are of using shortcuts and everything when using a computer, how would you recommend people actually understanding, like using how to use a computer in the best possible way?
Yeah, that's a good question too. I think it dovetails into what we both talked about earlier, which is understanding who you are.
Hmm.
Because if you understand who you are, you understand how you learn. And, like, I understand I'm a hands-on person. I'm a kinesthetic learner. I like to tinker with the thing I'm doing, right? So, like, the way I learn things, even in my current job, I follow the 5 hour rule. So I try to learn things 5 hours a week. Is I do them. I get in a lab environment. I get on my keyboard and I do them. I do things in Amazon Web Services. I do things in Google Cloud Platform, and that helps me continue to learn security stuff. I think, to your example of just getting better technically in general, like, yeah, I mean, there's just so many things now. There's like an overwhelming amount of choices. There's podcasts, there's Coursera, there's Udemy, there's YouTube. I learned a ton of great stuff on YouTube from people, So, like, there's really figuring out which way you learn best and then attacking that problem from the position you're the most effective. That's what I find works. So, I mean, for example, in your case, if you like online courseware, taking that Coursera course on how computing works or how the internet works or something like that, super effective way to learn. And if you spend 5 hours a week doing that, in 10 years, you're not going to be the sum total of that effective. You're going to be exponentially more effective,
Yeah,
right? You'll be 500% better
that's
at the thing you were doing if you do it a couple hours a
so
week.
self-awareness is the key to everything. So that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. And are you guys currently hiring? So if people want to apply for your company specifically, are you guys hiring? Are you looking for specific candidates? And if you are looking for specific candidates, what do you think would be something that would be like, yes, I want you in my specific company? Like, can you maybe elaborate on that?
Sure. So ScaleSec, that's what we call ourselves because scalable security is a lot of syllables. ScaleSec is hiring. We're looking for cloud security people, right? People who can do security in the cloud on specifically Amazon Web Services and Google Cloud Platform. So if you're a cloud engineer or a cloud security person and you're out there working at a company right now and you have solved complicated problems and you want to do that all the time, right? You want to be like an EMT for cybersecurity problems. Like, you rove around looking for those problems to actively solve them. That's what we do for a job. If you're outgoing and personable, a lot of people tend to underplay soft skills these days. If you're effective at speaking and effective at writing, and you like cloud security, that's the person we're looking for.
Yeah.
I run into a lot of people who will interview them and they'll be like, I really love the technical piece of this job, but I couldn't want to do this standing in front of the customer part any less than I could possibly want to do this. So, I mean, if that excites you, if getting up and meeting new people and having, demanding technical conversations excites you, then we're absolutely the type of place that you would want to come work at.
Okay, perfect. And are you guys into remote hiring? Like, are you open to remote hiring globally, or do you prefer people in the US? If you do prefer people into outside, like for example, outside the office and globally, what is something that you look for when you're actually managing a team that is global? What is something that you look for in those candidates specifically?
Yeah, that's another good question. So we don't mind global at all. We do. So it is, and bear with me because I'm not an expert
Of
in this,
course.
but there are certain visas that are very, very difficult to get people through that
Hmm.
process to the point where, like, if you're a small business like we are, it would require a person who just did that for a job,
Yeah.
which is why typically bigger companies, Google, Amazon, do that. But anyone who's here on a visa, anyone from any state, anyone from anywhere that is physically inside, the United States, or really sometimes even close places to the
Yeah.
United States, right? Like the Caribbean, Mexico,
Yeah.
Canada, who can work in the United States.
Yeah.
We're looking for those folks. We're fully remote. We prefer that methodology because if you're close to an airport, sometimes logistically it's just better to fly you to the client site. So we have East Coast people, West Coast people. We have folks in Texas. We have folks up in sort of the Midwest and Indiana and those places. And we prefer that. We prefer a global workforce. That gives us different points of view. That gives us consultants who have been in different parts of the industry, right? They haven't just been sitting in Silicon Valley. They've been in Allegheny County, Pittsburgh, in a big old fancy data center, working for folks like Expedient there, and they know all those customers around them. So, I mean, I think it's useful to have that kind of field experience where people come from different parts of the United States.
That makes sense, especially because a diverse team is always better because differences can bring out the best of you, where you're actually challenging each other's ideas rather than just conforming to someone's idea, which is a very single idea. So thank you so much, Ron, for sharing your insights. It was a pleasure having you. This is your host, Manal Bukhari, signing off.